Today we are going to calculate absolute change with percentages. So think about the percent sign. They're going to be there. Let's do this. So remember that absolute change is the absolute value between the final value and the initial value. Basically, these are reference values, right? But absolute change. Change means difference, which gives us the subtraction sign, and the absolute part is the absolute value. So let's jump in. When Gabe started his workout routine, he was 27% body fat. After just 6 months, he was down to 23% body fat. What is the absolute change in his body fat percentage? Now, I'm all about writing things down. What do I know? So I know that he started, right? His initial body fat was 27%. He finished, or his final body fat percentage here, was 23%. So if we know that absolute change is the absolute of final value minus initial value, we can work from here. So let's plug in what we know. Absolute change is the absolute value of the final 23 minus the initial of 27. Now, when I subtract 23 minus 27, I get the absolute value of -4, which is 4. Now, what this means, if we want to use, I like to call it a meaningful sentence, Gabe decreased his body fat percentage by 4 percentage points. I always think it's important to understand what we're talking about. Now, notice I use the word decreased because we started at 27 and moved to 23. So I can see that it decreased. This absolute change shows me the difference between those two numbers, but you have to determine based off your knowledge, did it increase or decrease? Let's do another one. Barb worked both Friday and Saturday nights at her second job waiting tables. On Friday, 35% of her income came from tips, and on Saturday, 42% of her income came from tips. What is the absolute change in the percentage of income coming from tips from Friday and Saturday? Now, because we're starting with Friday, from Friday, that is the initial, right? We always need our reference. So Friday is the initial, that's 35%. That means the final would be on Saturday, which was 42%. Again, absolute change, absolute value of final value minus initial value. If you struggle remembering how these things work, I highly recommend you write it down in symbols. Talk out loud. If you're not talking to yourself, you're missing advice from somebody brilliant. That's what I always say. So let's plug in what we know. Final value, 42. Initial value, 35. Okay, when I subtract those, 42 minus 35 is 7, and the absolute value of 7 is 7. Now, what does this mean? This means that Barb's income increased, income from tips increased 7 percentage points from Friday to Saturday. Right, that's important, that it's income from tips. Okay, but I think it's important. Increase, again, we know from 35 to 42 is an increase. So it increased 7 percentage points from Friday to Saturday. And that is absolute change with percentages.